Hello, everyone. It's Jerry at the Fledge, and welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. Down in the sanctuary, taping the show today or broadcasting the show. Haven't done a T-shirt thing maybe in a couple days, so another shout out to Accessiversity for giving us advice on how to make the show more accessible. And I also want to give a shout out to thisent.com, which is starting to look at some of the data and some of the trends and putting shows together as kind of a playlist. So that's pretty cool. And our newest kind of alliance we're making today is we've started putting the shows into 517living.com so that if you want to find a guest or see what guest is on the show today or over the next week, all of that will be there. So thank you very much, Sarah, for allowing us to do that and for being on the show yesterday. Now, today on the show is our great new friend, Evan. How you doing today, Evan?
Hey, Jerry, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I said great new friend. You know, usually I look at how long have we known people, what have we worked on together and all of that. And, it's kind of new, good, great, some sort of continuum. But you're at both ends of the continuum. We haven't known each other for that long, but we're already engaging and doing stuff, and
kindred
I love
spirit.
It.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. Yeah, I feel that too. So you've had some pretty big days behind you in the last month and a half or something like that. You want to talk about that real quick before we talk about you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite the whirlwind over the last month and a half. I've been on a deep series of travels, mostly south. Spent about a week in Guatemala studying from some Mayan elders, learning about the Cholquín. That's the sacred calendar. That's where like all the 2020 doomsday prophecies came from. Well, obviously there's a lot of wisdom and an ancient lineage behind that. So had an opportunity to learn from some Mayan elders, and then down to Peru to do some personal work deep in the jungle as well. So it's been quite the travel, and then back to spend some time here in Oklahoma, and then up north in the woods near Traverse City. All just time to do that inner work and kind of peel back some of the layers of ego and figure out what's beneath.
So it sounded, you and I talked a little bit earlier, and you were super pumped up about a lot of things that happened. It sounds like a very fulfilling trip.
You know, there's something amazing about travel. You get out there and you see the way other people in the world live, and you know it for me, it's an incredible opportunity to just realize how incredibly fortunate we are here in the United States with our roads, with our systems, with our structures, with our laws. We are incredibly privileged, and traveling as a way of opening up the heart to different people, different cultures, and really connecting you to what's, I think, important. At least that's what the travel was for me. This opportunity, as much as it's traveling outside, it's traveling inside in order to see my own reflection.
Yeah, I used to travel so much, and it just became a routine that I was just trying to get through because it was work, and it got ruined for me for a while, but I'm getting excited about traveling again. So,
well, the airports and travel is definitely back. I mean, it was incredibly crowded, and it's certainly been different since 9/11, but the world is a small place and getting even smaller with all of our ability to get places quickly.
Yeah. So let's jump into you a little bit. I bet you we weave some more of the trip back into the conversation, but would you mind telling us about, where you were born and raised, where you went to school, what brought you to want to do ecstatic dance in Lansing?
Yeah, Yeah, great questions. Well, I was born in Philadelphia, but I can always claim that Lansing has been a home for me. My grandma had a house here, and so even when I lived in Philadelphia, we spent summers here in Lansing. And my family moved here full time when I was about fifth grade. So even though I was born in Philadelphia, I say I'm from Michigan, and that's where I'm raised. I went to school here, went to Lansing Catholic Central, and had some good times there, and that kind of propelled me forward into moving down to Dallas. So I went to the University of Texas at Dallas, got a bachelor's and a master's degree, master's in public policy, bachelor's in interdisciplinary studies and political science. I wanted to go out and change the world, and so I thought that politics was the perfect place to insert myself into that. Had an opportunity to go to DC, get this like beautiful cross section of everything that was happening. Got to meet sitting senators, got to meet lobbyists, went to the Office of Management and Budget, and saw the system for what it was, operating so perfectly, actually, in serving the interests that it was set up to serve. And so decided that business for me was the better route to go. I figured Ross Perot was a better playbook than doing the lifetime in the political sphere. So when I was in Dallas, I had the opportunity to get connected with Ecstatic Dance in Dallas. And so for me, and this is much about who I am as a person, I'm on a healing journey, both for myself, and then that's also part of my mission as well, which is to bring about and foster more healing for those that are around me, for our communities, for our bioregions, for our life sphere. So on this healing journey, I came across Ecstatic Dance, and it was something that was incredibly challenging for me right at the beginning. Being self-conscious and not being like incredibly comfortable dancing in front of people was this incredible opportunity to actually drop deeper into my body, into this like somatic experience. And I'm a shamanic practitioner as well. And so one of the things that's important in shamanism is this concept of trance, right? You get trance drumming, anything that really creates an altered state. So like hallucinogenics are part of that, but so is drumming, so is dancing. And if you look at all of those practices, they're important in the shamanic traditions. And so this ecstatic dance is this awesome way to like get into an altered state. But through the dance, what I was discovering in Dallas, and then I had an opportunity to do some dances in Santa Barbara, California as well, and at a couple festivals, was the dances become more than just the dance. It takes on some personal theme. You have this opportunity to uncover something about yourself, and it can become incredibly emotional or incredibly energetic or incredibly ecstatic or just relaxing. You're just chilling and have a good time. And so the more and more that I had the opportunity to get involved in dance, the more and more I became passionate about it. And it was on Sundays. So for me, it was my church, a place for me to come and honor my temple and to really be in communion with my breath and with my body, and to really show life that I honor it and honor it through me in the way that I move my body, no matter how weird or funky it may look. And so it's definitely been an interesting journey doing ecstatic dance and returning to Lansing. In the pandemic, one of the things that I noticed is there's been a number of groups that have done ecstatic dance here and there. And as a community, I've experienced it, all across the country. I've seen these vibrant ecstatic dance communities of people oriented towards healing and growth and connection and community. And so for me, it seemed like the perfect opportunity to start something up. And thus was born Ecstatic Dance Lansing, which I'm very happy to share as a fundraiser for the Fledge because of the great work that you're doing here. And I'm really excited about that.
Well, thank you very much for that. And I'll post the website in a second. But before we get too deep into that, what brought you back to Lansing now?
Great question. The pandemic was an interesting opportunity where it disconnected so many people from the office. My previous job, I was working in software as a service, big tech, and I was leading a sales team of 80 people, and I didn't have to go to the office every day. And so being in Dallas, Texas, they say things are like the concrete jungle. It was feeling more like the concrete zoo, and I was caged in. And so my parents are still here and had the opportunity to come back and spend a little time with them. And Lansing is so green. There's so much lusciousness here. There's so much space. And for me, it's been incredibly nourishing to return back to Lansing to see how much it's grown over the decade that I've been in Dallas, and to come back and re-relate to Lansing in this new way where my eyes now see the incredible potential that maybe I didn't once see when I left at 19 years old. And I can share that happily.
So I think that's awesome. You know, one thing about Lansing though is they did get like recognized as the most like gray space within a city limit, like the percentage. But you know, I was at Waldemar the other day. I don't know if you know that park.
Yeah.
And it's so gorgeous. And Fenner, obviously, where you're having the dance or we're having the dance.
Yeah.
So welcome back on that note, though, because I'm really happy to see when people kind of leave and go out and experience, and then they bring that back to us. It makes us smarter, you know. So we need astronauts going out in the rest of this world, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there one day and a guy's asking me to get his house rattled. Do I know any shamans? And I know like a couple, but none of them are responding to me. And so I like put this thing out in the universe. I could really use another shaman in my Rolodex. That sounds silly, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And you rode your bike up to the Fledge just randomly and looked at me weird. And what brought you to the Fledge?
Well, first off, I mean, the thing we both know, Jerry, is it wasn't random, number one. And number two, I think an important distinction is I don't refer to myself as a shaman. And
sorry, yeah.
As well, and it's a good point. Like I see it thrown around a lot in articles, and it's very on trend and becoming more on trend as mass consciousness rises. For me, I call myself a shamanic practitioner. For me, I haven't been born into an indigenous lineage or a lineage that's been, someone that's been practicing this from day one. So for me, I call myself a practitioner. And, one of the things that's important to do, I think, is like to understand the environment that we're in. And so as I return to Lansing, I'm doing this like environmental scan to understand like who's doing what out here in Lansing, and it didn't take me very long to come across the Fledge. And so I didn't expect to run into you, but you just happened to be outside, and we made the connection. And it definitely seemed like a bit of divine timing because I had just finished some extra training on doing house clearings and space clearings. And literally I'm back in Lansing for like a couple days from New Mexico, and boom. And it was a really good opportunity to be of service, and that felt great.
Yeah, I was so happy. He needed that so bad. He was stressed, and I think you saved the day.
Well, it wasn't me. I'm just the vessel.
All right. I'll do my best to get this right. So let's jump into your projects. All right. And, Ecstatic Dance Lansing, I put the website out there. It's ecstaticdancelansing.com, everyone. I'll put it on the screen. If you got a screen reader, I think it picks it up. And that's one project, but you got other projects too, right? I mean, you're not going to sustain your livelihood by doing ecstatic dances right now, are you? No, I'm not. Particularly when I'm doing them all as fundraisers, and I think that's part of the gift to spirit and gift to community, which is incredibly important. So projects that I have kind of launching right now are in some various phases. Sensemaking101.com. So sense making is this practice essentially of us diving in to understand how we make sense of the world. And it really got a lot more popular during the pandemic because all of a sudden there's this giant paradigm shift, right? All of our lives changed during COVID. And sense making is the skills to, number one, look for your own cognitive biases, look for your own shortcuts in your thinking, the heuristics, and then to be able to examine like what is the origin of where your thoughts come from, and then together try to make sense of the world. And it's really looking at a full spectrum of ideas. So rather than getting hung up on one point, it's understanding, well, what are the valid
arguments or valid positions across the entire spectrum. So instead of being D versus R, it's saying, well, what are the actual like values underneath that are actually important signals? How do we detect those signals? And then how do we actually use those to make better sense of the world, both for me, myself, but then you and I together as we come into a community to become a community of sense makers so that we can have more agreement about what's most important. And so sensemaking101.com is basically an on-ramp for people to develop their sense-making skills. So there's a whole kind of developmental path where you can learn more about the different pieces of putting together a sense-making practice and then engaging with that both for yourself, but then also for your organization, for your family, and then us together as we work to make more sense in the environment. So that's one project, which is well launched, and you can check it out there at sensemaking101.com.
So real quick on that subject, two guys pull up the other day in a van. They kind of park in a way that I'm thinking is kind of aggressive or something, in the driveway, blocking the sidewalk, whatever. They both step out. They've got American flag hats on, and they just got this kind of Trump swagger to them, right? And I'm thinking, oh, shit, man, these guys are going to call me a sissy for wearing a mask and all this other stuff. And instead of really reacting to that, I was like, I'm going to engage with these guys and just see what happens. And I start talking to them, where they're from, what they've been up to, if they want to come into the free store. And they're obviously on the right, and I'm obviously on the left, and or at least from their perspective. And I'm like, I'm going to see if I can meet these guys in the middle. And I'm going to go really fast, though. It turns out, every time he was talking, he wasn't swinging at me. He wasn't swinging at Black Lives Matter. He was swinging up. He was swinging at the government. And, he wants his rights, and he thinks the vaccine is, a conspiracy and all that. And if I let all that go and said, what does this guy really want, and who's he really swinging at? And he was swinging straight up towards the federal government. And that was super enlightening for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
That's who I want to swing at too. So at least we're swinging at the same people.
It's really interesting when right in here. There's a Bernie flag right outside this door, and it is my strong belief that Bernie would have won. The election, and I think the reason for that is because if you really look beneath all of it, people have the same set of grievances. And the grievances are actually about the systemic failure that's occurring right now. The rigged economic system, about our inability to actually support vibrant life. And Trump actually got at that in the same way that Bernie did. They actually had very much of a similar message, which is that the game is rigged. Trump just did it better, I guess. And Bernie didn't get his shot. So I love that example because we head into life often with a sense of rightness, and it comes from our family history or from our background, from a set of beliefs, from our peer groups around us. And then we approach life as if that must be the right thing. And sense making is taking a step back from that and knowing that, you can have a different set of beliefs and you can still explore those, and then you can still maybe actually come to a new belief, a new understanding. And that's really what sense making is. And so I love the fact that you engaged in that. Good faith dialogue is a core tenet of sense making. How do we come together and actually say, well, seek first to understand? St. Thomas Aquinas, right? How do we actually do that in a way where I can create the space for you to be seen? Because the reality is we need to get our hearts to match up. We're allowed to have different views inside of a community. That's actually what makes us vibrant. That's actually what makes us resilient. We don't need everybody to believe the same thing, but then how do we find the commonality, and how do we understand the differences such that we can build from those together rather than loggerheads?
Well, first of all, I've been accrediting Stephen Covey with that quote forever because it is one of his habits.
You can't go wrong with 7 habits.
So I gotta fix that next time I say seek first to understand.
Everything's borrowed.
Yeah. And then I forgot the second thing. Oh, the our strength is in our differences too. If we don't understand our differences, we might not understand our strength. And I love what you're putting down here. So,
So
we're going for 3 hours today, right? We got so much to talk about.
I may need a refill on the water, but we can go for it.
Yeah, you're gonna have to fast for it. So let's talk about another project real quick.
Yeah. So where do we start at the genesis of this? I graduated high school in 2006. Before that, I was, I'll say, a mild conspiracy theorist. Bilderberg Trilateral Commission. The world is there's a shadowy figure of dark elites that are pulling the strings and are puppeteers. And ultimately, what I came to is that I can't really prove or disprove any of that. When I engage in an honest sense making, there's a reason to be skeptical. There's a reason why those beliefs are out there, but I also can't prove any of them without a doubt. Personally, that's where I wound up. And so shortly after I graduated, I saw the 2008 crisis, the crash. And The Big Short is sums it up well, or Inside Job, great documentaries that talk about how the economic system was rigged. And I looked at that and I felt a lot of angst about that. It's okay, our economic system is fundamentally broken. What do we do about this? And so that led me on a very winding path of thinking about our systems, and slowly and surely winding up at a place of saying the change that we're seeking to make is primarily systemic. So for instance, somewhere close to me, they cut down a forest that I've loved for many years. I've been walking in this forest for decades, literally, and they cut it down. Now, am I mad at the logger? Well, I know who the logger is, but I'm not mad at the logger. He's just trying to feed his family. It's the system. It's the way that the DNR funds all of their efforts, right? By selling timber rights. And of course, the DNR will say that they're managing forests, and there's actually a solid plan there. And despite me being really worked up about them cutting down the forest, I went and had a great conversation with the forest ranger, and he actually educated me, and I was able to engage in some sense making to understand that there's two sides to the story, and it wasn't just a clear-cut forest, but they did clear cut the forest. So I say all that to say it's the system itself, right? It's the laws that are passed at the state level that allow us to say we have a carbon neutral goal, but we're still cutting down our forests. So then we say, how do we operate effectively at our systems? And what this has really brought me around to is what's called regenerative development, right? Regenerative cultures. And so I had the opportunity to study with Regenesis. It's a organization that emerged out of permaculture. Bill Reed, Carol Sanford, really some very sharp people who put together the regenerative practitioner program. And so what I've been doing is studying and building my capabilities as a regenerative practitioner. And so me and my business partner, we're at dynamiccontainers.com. We've started a regenerative advisory to partner with organizations that are looking to shift from Horizon 1 to Horizon 2, which essentially means the organizations that know that what we're doing right now is not sustainable, and they know that there has to be some set of actions that get us bridging over towards a regenerative future that'll actually regenerate our bioregions and regenerate our communities. And so that's been a big endeavor, and it's been a sticky one as well, because it requires us to look at systems, right? And to look at the nestedness inside our systems, to understand the complexity and the interweaving. And of course, understanding complexity is incredibly difficult. So I know it's a winding story, but I think it's important to understand, how did I arrive at that? Because I think a lot of us can look at the economic system and say it's broken. We can look at our different systems and say, okay, we have some challenges. And so for me, being a regenerative practitioner is saying, how do we do something that's place-based? And I think that's one of the most important principles is we have to work here in our places. And that's why I was so inspired when I found the Fledge, because you've chosen a place you've stuck a flag in the ground, right? And now you're engaged in the work in a variety of different domains. If you come to the Fledge, from what I've seen, and you probably own this, it's like from an untrained eye, you can see some level of chaos. You can see some level of not disorganization, but there's a lot of different things going on. And to me, all that shows is that there's complexity at work here, that the Fledge is actually operating in these different ways on these different levels, not just politically or socially, but all the different facets, solving food, solving transportation, working on the economic system with FledgeCoin. There's a complexity at play here that I think is really healthy, and is one of the reasons why I'm so excited to have strolled up on you on my bike that one day, and here we are.
Yeah, it was even that conversation. I was getting so excited about what we're going to do. I mean, the die is cast. It has already been done. We just haven't seen it yet. So it's funny because, we always said you have to build that complexity because you've got to get to that level of chaos where you can't predict what's going to happen next. I mean, it's just complexity forms chaos because we can't understand the complexity. And that's really the definition of chaos. So we always use that, but it comes out of the complexity theory. And so to pick up on that, you get it for sure. Yeah.
There's a really good model of this. It's called Cynefin, Cynefin by David Snowden, and it's another framework that I've trained with. And so in the Cynefin framework, they say it's complexity and chaos, and then you've got the complicated realm and the simple realm. And so that's a way of orienting yourself to like, what domain are we actually operating in? Because some things are relatively straight and simple and straightforward. Otherwise, some things are really complex. And so they have like a nice framework that helps map out what domain we're operating in, and then what actions are required depending on what domain we're in.
Yeah. I definitely need to look at that because it brought so many more words to my head when you were saying that. So, and these frameworks are important so we can all talk to each other, and we've got a common language and we've got a common understanding. But they're also important because people don't think like this, right? We have a population that's very analytical. I've got to fix this problem, so I take this apart and I look at this thing and I break it down. But sometimes systems thinking requires a more holistic view and, all of the pieces and the other systems that are interacting and the subsystems. So I spent 30 years on the other side building these evil, complex systems, or helping to build them, and came to the realization one day that I'm contributing to predatory algorithms. I'm contributing to, bias in systems that we don't start out thinking is going to be evil, but gets out of hand super quick. So, you and I are a yin and yang at our way that we came at this. Because you reckon, it took me in 2006 is about the time I really started pushing my model and thinking this through and saying, I don't want to play in this field anymore. I want to go make a different field and show a different way.
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot. Look at me. I fell into asking you questions things and trying to figure this out. Sorry about that, everyone.
We're all trying to figure it out. I'm convinced of that.
He's using his tricky Peruvian ways to hypnotize me. And
not me.
Before we go on to like how you put how you might define your mission, are there any other projects you want? Well, let's talk about something with Ecstatic Dance, Lansing.com. We kind of this was a few months ago when we first talked, I think. It was a month and a half ago when you put the flyer out or something like that. And we had a mask requirement. We're going to update that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the things are dynamic, certainly. And when I printed up the flyers and put the website together, the world was a different place, despite the fact that was only a month and a half ago. So outside, fresh air, I think we'll all be happy to be unmasked as we all are. mostly anyway.
So this is at Fenner
Mm-hmm.
next Saturday, so the 26th. And what was the time again? I have the poster there.
So it starts at 2 p.m.
Okay.
Yep. And the setting is really beautiful. For any of you that haven't been to Fenner, we've got the kind of the fairground field rented out. We've got a sponsor coming in from Detroit, and they've been just incredibly generous to donate some silent disco headsets. So Silent Experiences by City Hop, they're coming in from Detroit. So it's going to be kind of silent disco style, wall of headsets on. And one correction is it's not next Saturday, it's next Sunday. Keeping with the tradition of having it be on Sundays after church time, if that's a thing. So it's at 2 p.m. on the 27th. And this is like I said, a fundraiser for the Fledge. So we'd love to see you out there. Great opportunity to build some community, connect with nature, jam out to some good tunes, and do it for a good cause.
Yeah, I'm scared to death to come and dance and do all of that. Kind of like what you said in your first experience.
A good rule that I like to live by is move towards the resistance.
Yeah.
That's one that I've lived by pretty consistently, and it can be incredibly uncomfortable. I find it's the place of the biggest growth. So I promise you won't look goofier or weirder than I will. Flail it. like wacky waving inflatable arm tube man. That's going to be me on the dance floor, I promise you.
See, but someone's going to TikTok me and say, look at the guy from the Fledge. And that's how I'm going to get famous on TikTok. And I'm not going to, I wanted to go a different route, but who knows? So, I've been thinking, we talk a lot about psychedelics and stuff like that. I want to hit on that, but not really that for a second. The people that are very pro psychedelics, mushrooms, acid, whatever, and how that can raise consciousness are always like, man, we just need to get everyone to trip one time and this whole society would be so good. But, that has a lot of stigma. It's drug, it's this, it's that, and it's not for everybody. But dancing could be, or drumming could be. So this is a path to that higher consciousness that we all kind of wish, man, I wish this guy would experience this because I think he would be a little more enlightened. And I'm glad I experienced it because I am more enlightened. All right, this is cool. So now nobody's going to come because they don't want to get enlightened.
Well, that's a tall order, and no promises, but it could happen next Sunday. It could happen.
Yeah. Or definitely a spark of it happening, right? Mm-hmm. So how would you kind of put together what your mission is?
Yeah, I mean that's I think one of the most important questions that somebody can ask in life. And so I put that question very, very close to what is your purpose? And as near as I can figure it out so far, it's to encourage the healing, the re-remembering of essence. So the re-remembering of essence, what does that mean? Well, in our places, each place has an essence, right? Lansing has an essence. Like if you connect to the story of place, you can figure out like, what is it about this place that makes it this place? Like what is Lansing? What makes Lansing as opposed to anywhere else in the world? And so the same thing can be said for ourselves personally. It's like, what is our personal essence? And so for me, it's about the process of healing myself, right? And then working with you or whoever for them to do their own healing. I can't heal you. It's impossible for me to do that. I'm still working on myself. We all are. How can I encourage you to do the healing? And then how can we do that in a way that also brings forward the essence of the place that we're actually in and brings forward the potential of Lansing? That connects in with the story of place. Why is Lansing where it is, right? Why did it start as a mill on a river? What were the natives doing around here? Like, if you actually read into like how it all came to be, you start to understand the essence a little bit, and then we work to bring forward essence first by healing. So my mission is to heal, and the most important part about that starts internally. There's a teaching. It's in the Mayan tradition. It's in the Toltec tradition, and it talks about the different suns. And so the last solstice, which is actually, what was that, about 10 days ago, was actually a very important astrological event in their calendars. They called it the shift from the fourth sun to the fifth sun. What does that mean? Well, obviously the sun's still up there burning in the sky, giving us all this, good energy. But for them, what they said is the fourth sun was a time in which we were oriented externally. So this was a time in which materialism and accumulation and changing the world around us was what the fourth sun is. And their teaching is, and this period is like 5,200 years. So it's a very significant shift. Like, none of us will ever see another sun again in our life. The shift into the next sun is when we turn that focus from out to in. And their teaching is that the next 5,200 years of humanity will be a time in which we're focused inward. And so that's part of the work that I do with Ecstatic Dance Lansing, and some of the other modalities that I work in as well.
Well, do you mind if the solstice you said was how many days ago, or what was the date?
Sorry, not the solstice. I misspoke myself. Okay. The eclipse. The solstice comes up next Monday, yeah, and right. I'll be having a good fire ceremony, and definitely engaging in some prayers on that day.
Yeah. So the 7 days ago, what was the date of that?
Now you're testing me. I'm not going to pull it up, but it was the last eclipse, and I want to say. Oh yeah. Well, time's moving a bit quick. I guess it was a few weeks ago. Actually, I've been traveling, so it's kind of been a blur.
When is that the time when they went to the fifth sun?
Yeah. Yep. That was a few weeks ago. So from a astrological standpoint, in those traditions, like, one of the most important events, they've been talking about it for a long time, preparing for this next sun. And so one of the easiest way to say it is, like, in the fourth sun, it used to be on 10 watts. Like, it was a 10-watt bulb. And now in the fifth sun, it just got turned up to 1,000 watts. Like, that's literally like the difference in the magnitude of what they say is available in terms of the ability to focus inward. And I think that, it's right on time, because you can see in our world, like, the focus on the external is driving our systems to the point of collapse, right? We're teetering on the, total global warming and climate disaster. We're in the midst of the greatest loss of species, and the economic system is challenged, to say the least. And then, of course, we have all of our social challenges, all of our political challenges that rest on top of that. And so it's this perfect time in which we actually get to go in and look and reflect on, like, what is it about ourselves that is manifesting this externally? And we've got some healing to do. There's no doubt about it.
This, you come around me, and this serendipity just starts happening, because it was several days ago, I don't know exactly when it really solidified in my head what sunshine was going to mean to me, and what that team was going to do, and what that new thing I'm trying to build is. So we'll have to talk about that too, because it's going to line up perfectly, I'm sure of it, or we'll make it. I'll rewrite history. What do you do every damn day to push that mission forward?
Yeah. I mean, the most important thing that I can do is work on my own healing. As a leader of an organization we grew it to about 80 people at the software company I worked at previously. I woke up and I would ask myself, like, why should people follow you? Why would people follow you? What is it about me that someone would say, yes, I choose to have this person be my mentor, my leader, my coach, my manager? And I know so thoroughly that the reason why I was able to do that and be effective is because I did the inner work to get my own BS out of the way, right? I've done my own personal work. And so the most important thing that I can do in my mission is wake up every day and engage in my set of practices, which continue to clear off the layers of trauma and programming. And I had a great childhood, but we all pick up stuff in childhood. It's just part of the human experience, right? We get our wounded child, and then on top of that, you pile on a set of life experiences, and then, you get chucked into the world and you have to make a living. And somewhere in there is that moment to just stop and really focus on your own healing. So for me, I get up every day. It's meditate, it's journal, it's do my prayers. I do qigong. I work with tobacco sometimes. I do my practices every day. It's then after I've been able to clear that space within myself for my own healing that I've now got a really clear container, a really clear vessel, right? That's me, that now is able to say, okay, what is my dharma? The Vedic concept of dharma, like life purpose, right? And feeling more and more resolute that the more I work my practices, the more I'm able to show up in a way that's present, that's powerful, but is also humble. My heart's open, and I'm using all of my senses and faculties in order to really meet the moment. And so as much preparation I can do, I think about it much like a professional athlete. I'm not a sports fan at all. So if you drop any sports reference whatsoever, I'll make a really corny joke and it'll go right over my head. But, the professional athletes, how much training do they do for their moment? In some sports, that moment's a minute or two long. In some sports, it's 10 or 20 or 40 minutes, but the level of preparation to be ready for that moment. And so I'd offer that one of the best things that you can do, listener, yourself, is also do that level of work to continue to work on yourself. And that's the biggest thing that you can do to help me, is work on yourself for you. And something that's been definitely resonant for me.
I used to tell people all that there's a Buddhist story, and I'll get it wrong and all of that, but it was basically a grandfather and a granddaughter, and he would, have her on his shoulders. And as she got older and older, and he got older and older, the dynamic was kind of changing, and she was always trying to protect him and work on his part and forgot to work on her part. And it all kind of fell apart, not because of him, but because of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that all the time. If we all worked on ourselves, we'd be great.
Well, it's like the really common aphorism, you want to serve when your cup is overflowing, right? We fill our own cups first, and so much in our society, we're looking outside to do that. That's that external orientation, right? Well, if I get this nicer car, I get a nicer watch and a nicer house and apartment, and I have the perfect partner and the perfect job, then my cup will be full. And that's the makings of the common midlife crisis that we hear so much about. People get all of this and they look at their cup and they go, why is it empty? I don't get it. And then they get rid of all of those things. They buy a sports car. The quintessential thing. And the reality is, it's because we fill our cups internally first. Yeah. And it's once we've done that, then we can fill other people's cups.
Yeah. My cup definitely started overflowing when I walked away from all of that. Mm-hmm. So very wise, Evan. We daisy chain these shows together. As I said, Sarah Pierce was on the show yesterday from 517living.com, and she's all about people doing stuff in Lansing. So her question to you is, what is one thing that you've wanted to do in Lansing, but you've just haven't been able to do it yet? And when are you going to get that done? make a commitment on air. She's watching. She's going to hold you accountable.
One thing. Honestly, Ecstatic Dance Lansing has been that thing. I've had the opportunity to be in a number of really healthy, robust, vibrant ecstatic dance communities where there's tight connections and support. And I've missed that personally, and also know that it's an incredible opportunity to bring to Lansing. So it's been the thing that I was thinking about. And I think it's important for us to look out and say, like, here's something that I can do today. I don't think Ecstatic Dance Lansing is the thing that I'm doing with my life, but it's certainly a thing that I'm doing to contribute to our community and, to raise money for the Fledge. So, it's next Sunday at 2 p.m. at Fenner, Sunday the 27th. And, that's the thing. And then, I think there'll be plenty of other things, and hopefully you'll have me back on one day and we can talk about some of those some other time.
We're going to make a whole new show, man. Just around what you're talking about.
Careful, because I'll take you up on that offer.
Well, I'm going to need something to do in a couple months here. Tomorrow on the show, I've got Michelle, and Michelle is going to talk about recovery. So she's in recovery. She's struggled with it. She's succeeded. She's struggled. She did all the different things, she's working on herself. What question would you like me to pass to Michelle?
Well, recovery is certainly apropos for our conversation about healing. So props to her and to everybody in recovery. What question do I want to ask? Also fitting with one of the threads of the conversation today. Say, Michelle, among our many systems, political, social, economic, etc., among our many systems, which is the system that you think needs the most work and will get the most leverage from by working on?
And I think she's going to have her answer for that. What's your answer for that?
I've spent a lot of time obviously thinking about this, and the year I think has been challenging for us all. I don't want to say starting with George Floyd, because that's a pretty big misrepresentation and inaccuracy, but certainly, brought the conversation to the forefront societally. And I looked deeply at those issues. I've been following a lot of trends for a long time. And for me, what I keep winding back to is actually the economic system is the linchpin. I think that if we change the economic system, many of the other systems that are dysfunctional will have a better chance at actually having some type of self-correcting activity. There's so many people working on so many good things in the world. I'm incredibly inspired. I mean, it seems like every day I come across 2 new organizations where people are doing incredibly inspiring work. But what's that hill that everybody's running up against? And I think it's the economic system. A couple things in particular. One, are systems of incentivization. So, and I know we've talked about this. We talked about it with FledgeCoin. It's how do we create the right incentives for the behavior that we want? And so I actually think that the tax code, super boring. I've never read through the tax code. It's like, 25,000 pages. I think that's a place, honestly, that we can get the most bang for our buck, because it creates the system of incentives where corporations then do things like destroy our communities and our planet in order to get profits. Yeah. So I think, that's one place, and I'll just stop there because I know we're going on 50 minutes, but I think it's the economic system, and donut economics I think is a beautiful model of how we can move to a much more circular economy, and what you're doing here at the Fledge is certainly a part of the solution. So thank you for having me, and I look forward to working together more.
Well, you're welcome, but I'm not letting you off the hook yet. We got a couple more things here.
Shucks.
One is happiness, sadness, joy, or hope. What word would you like to talk about? Or we'll talk about a combination of the two if you wish.
Let's talk about sadness.
Good. You know what? I knew you were going to say that earlier today. I knew it. You're the first person who's done it. And it seems like a lot different of the word that you might as we're listening to all these positive things. I'm so happy you just did that. So the serendipity gets stronger. What is sadness? Why is sadness important?
I'm going to answer that question first by talking about brain chips. So on the horizon is brain chips, and you may have seen the article in which it says, I'm not going to mention the name. Company wants to put chip inside your head so you can control your emotions, and the subtext is like, never have a negative emotion again. And I think that this is one of the most dangerous and irresponsible things we can possibly do. And it comes from a place in which, we relate to sadness as being a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Sadness is a really important signal, right? It tells us something about our internal life. And so one of the teachings that I live by is that everything is my teacher. Period. Say, well, how does that work? Well, just try it on. Everything is your teacher. And so sadness comes up. And this is something I've been working with. I'm sad about them clear cutting the forest. I'm actually grieving about it. But I don't chase that away. Because number one, the sadness creates a beautiful distinction to my happiness. How can I know happiness without really knowing the depth of my sadness? And then for sadness in particular, it's like, well, the grief that I feel sad around this actually reminds me of how much I actually love. And there's an incredibly powerful teaching for me there. And some days, not every day is an up day. And I think that if every day is an up day, then you might be lying to yourself. we all have sad days. What's the root of that? And it's scary to look in the mirror, because maybe what you're sad about on the surface is not actually what you're sad about underneath. Psychologically, we play these weird games where we transfer things from our past or our fears into, they transmute into things on the surface. But beneath them, in the shadows, lurking in our psyche, our wounded children, our loyal soldiers, all of this stuff down there is waiting. And so we often, we have a society that orients towards joy and happiness. And trust me, I love those. Those are really good as well. And I'll say that's one of the, I think, important distinctions about sense making is it's that and, right? It's not the or conversation. It's the and. There's multiple points on the spectrum. And taking this full spectrum and understanding it and then being able to operate with it, it's like my sadness is a really important signal and I cherish it. I cherish it because it teaches me things about myself.
If you don't mind, I've got a couple of comments. With Father's Day coming up on this Sunday, it's the anniversary of my daughter's death. Because we just said we didn't pick the date, we just said it's going to be on Father's Day. And at part of that, it will be, that signal inside. I loved her so much. I'm so sad today. Part of it's, I want to feel that. I don't want to lose that feeling. I don't want to be desensitized to it. And, it will make me reflect. But at the same time, it's going to make me celebrate for much of the same reasons that you just mentioned. And then I also think about if that's taken away from us and, imagine that feeling in your hand is taken away so you could touch the stove whenever you wanted. Your hand would not have skin or muscle anymore. It would just be a burnt up set of bones because you didn't know to pull it away because you were going to get hurt. You need those signals to understand what's happening, and not in the external in this case, but in the internal. You tied it all together, man.
Beautiful. You put the bow on it. Teamwork makes the dream work.
So I think anybody who's watching this that knows me knows that you and I are kindred spirits, and that I think we're going to get along super good, or whatever it takes to get this work done. But I'm really, really excited. And you're coming out of this long trip. It could have easily been, man, I'm too tired. I got malaria. I'm not going to come on the show today, whatever. And I really, really appreciate you coming on the show and, teaching me a lot during the show. I'm going to be listening as much as I possibly can to you, and can't wait to learn from each other.
Well, I'm humbled to be on the cast with Sarah yesterday and Michelle tomorrow. There's such amazing work going on here at the Fledge and here in Lansing, and I'm just excited to take up my part and put my two hands to work. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to flash. Great show. He spelled your name wrong, but that was a mistake. Great show, Jerry. Thanks, Evan. Charlie's been talking throughout the show a little bit. He told us Thursday was the eclipse and stuff, and I kind of didn't pull comments on. But thank you, Charlie. Long time friend here. I don't know, 80 years. So,
thanks, Charlie.
What would you like to take us out with?
This is a bit of a stretch. I'd actually like to share a piece that I wrote. I'm on Spotify. It's a long story, but I'd like to close out with a piece that I wrote, if that's all right with you. Absolutely.
And I'll end the show right when you're done.
Awesome. Hopefully I can get it all from memory. I think I'm going crazy. I'm growing impatient from bottling my greatness. I take a look around the world surrounded by fakeness. Yet no one seems to hate this. Society's lost in translation's vagueness. I often think I need a vacation and I can't take this. I wake at breakfast, meditate in the morning light of my solar plexus. What are the motivations for our actions? What directs us? So much doesn't make sense and it all affects us. We spend our lives acquiring stuff that fills space but leaves us empty, that's senseless. Work takes a toll on our health. We trade it for money, but by the time we retire, we have neither. It's senseless. I pause in the moment. I'm breathless. This is me feeling restless. If not me, then who will address this? Deliver the message. I'm a vestige of the past, but I live in the future. I'm here to get sexy with the universe, me, infinite reality in the Kama Sutra. Life has everything you need and nothing that doesn't suit you. Awaken several eyes and rise from the stupor. It's not about brand name status or the rumors. We're so blinded by shiny objects that we can't see the plain sight tumors. A generation of victims and rescuers. I'm a stand for a generation of doers, defiant against the eye because we know that there's a cure. You don't have to ask me what the purpose of my life is. Don't ask twice, I'm sure. My intentions are pure. What are yours? Push past the limits of what we think we can do to find our fear. Shed our ego because we're surrounded by peers. I'll lead from the front but circle back to support those in the rear. I'm not even sure that the vision is clear. This concept extends beyond the backyard to the entire sphere, to the cellular magnificence of our grand biosphere. I need a healer and a storyteller, not an analyst and engineer. Are we really free? Or are we just deer, blinded by the light? I will not go quietly into the night. Prefer peace, but will never surrender. Step up to this necessary fight. How much am I willing to give? If required, could I sacrifice my life? Surrender my attachments and give it all just to make everything right. But then I remember that there's nothing wrong. How is that possible with all of this going on? Fuck it, break down. Maybe I just want to cry and hug my mom. But how can that still be viewed as strong? You and I are equal. It's the same species to which we belong. This is not about me, and I could care less about this song. Break the veil, shine the lightness, and lift the fog. You need to know that we can't do it without you. You're more than a cog.